Hi, it's time for a mail call video. So today we have something that I think will be interesting, and it's actually something that I have never seen one in real life before. In fact, it's something that you hardly even paid any attention to when it was available. It popped up online recently. It seems to be reasonably well packaged. It's in this file carry box, which is interesting. And if you take it out, it's kind of heavy. It's got a power cord, and it may be new old stock, or it might be used. It was unclear. It might just have been hanging around for a while. And does everything that's in there. Let me get rid of the trash and we'll get it set up, and I'll show you what I got. So this is a Music and Sound model MC960PA. PA stands for Power Amp. And this was an optional item that Music and Sound made starting in the mid-90s. And here you can see model MC960PA has a date code of September of 05, which is interesting. 120 volts, 60 hertz, 150 VA, 150 watts is how much power it uses. M&S Systems, Dallas, Texas. Risk of electrical shock, do not open. Well, we're not going to pay any attention to that. We're professionals. We can open it up if we want to. So what is an MC960PA? Remember, PA stands for Power Amp. Well, in the mid-90s, when Music and Sound was making their new MC series of music intercom systems, that would be the MC302, the MC602, the MC702. There was an MC902, which was a stereo music intercom. And then there was the Music and Sound model MC960. And the MC960, here I have a picture of it, looks like that, like this. I don't have one because honestly, I've never seen one. I don't think it was a big seller, and I've never been asked to work on one. What's interesting is this is not a music intercom system. This is basically a receiver with music controls. There's no intercom. It was for a whole house music system. And it's also interesting that if you look at this, and then we flip over to the MC302, which was sort of the entry-level intercom of the day, they look amazingly alike. And I think they use the same chassis and faceplate. It's a smaller unit than the MC602 down here, or this is the 702 down below it. It's a smaller size because it doesn't need as much stuff inside, because it's not really an intercom, it's just an AM/FM receiver with radio controls. So the idea was you could buy this, and this gave you your AM/FM radio. It had external audio source inputs, so you could buy their cassette player or CD player, or have your own auxiliary music devices that you could tie into it. And then this would be connected to this, and then all the speakers throughout the house are driven by this amplifier. So this goes with this. This by itself, it doesn't do anything at all. I don't think this was a big seller. I've never seen a house with one of these. I've never had anybody call me about one of these, so I don't know how successful it actually was. The MC960PA Power Amplifier, this was designed to be able to drive up to 10 pairs of stereo speakers. So that would be 20 speakers altogether. Obviously this one is used and has been installed at some point. You can see up here where the mounting screw is, it's obviously been mounted. You can see where the heads of the screw have scraped the paint, down here at the bottom also. And as a dead giveaway, here's a little Phoenix connector that has individual wires in it. This is the interconnect cable that you run between the power amplifier and your 960 tuner. We'll call it a tuner because it's not really a master station per se. That's how the signals get connected between the two devices. The other thing that's interesting about this is that the way this was all designed, you could actually daisy chain up to 3 of these amplifiers for a total of 60 speakers or 30 pairs of stereo speakers. That's a lot of speakers. Now, the thing about that is, one, this is designed to drive 45 ohm speaker cones because that's what kind of speaker cones Music and Sound makes. You would have to have a local volume control for each pair of speakers in your house. This was really designed to create a more advanced music system in your house while not really using high-end, high-fidelity stereo speakers. And it's also interesting here that there's 2 Phoenix connectors. This one is labeled as 2-second amplifier, and it's got one of these dodgy Music and Sound. This is one of the blue connectors where it's got these clips, and you insert the wires into the holes and you close the clips and it bites into the wire, and these are not good. The green Phoenix connectors are really the way to go because they use set screws. So you put your wire into the opening along the top and you tighten down each screw, and this is a very positive connection. These are the same Phoenix connectors that are used on the DMC1, and we'll talk more about DMC1s and these shortly. Let's plug this back in. Got to get it the right way around. So what all do we have in here? Well, down here at the bottom we have 2 low voltage transformers. These are each rated at 120 volts in, 60 hertz, 18 volts at 75 VA. These are very much the same transformers that they used in the MC902, which is a stereo music intercom. It's also the same transformers that were used like in the MC800 and the N80 and all the stereo music intercoms Music and Sound made starting in the mid 80s used transformers just like this. You got your power cable cord connection down here at the bottom. Build quality on this is kind of standard, I guess, for the day. You've got the 3 connections here with spade lugs on the back. There's no heat shrink tubing or anything over them. They're just open. That's a little on the dodgy side in my opinion. And then you've got these big honking yellow wire nuts wiring up the primary side of the transformer. It's not that great. Low voltage outputs here, and then I would assume this is your power supply section down here. You got your main filtering caps of questionable quality. They're KG brand, which I don't know what those are, or there could be REC brand. Again, not sure. They're only 85 degrees C rated caps. It's not that great. You got your power regulation down here, and then you've got your 2 power amplifiers. You've got 2 fairly large output transistors on this heatsink and 2 on this heatsink, and these little wires here and here go to temperature sensors that are supposed to be screwed to the heatsink. This one on this side is actually loose, so that's not going to do a very good job. There's probably some kind of thermal cutout that happens if this gets too hot. You have to think about the fact that if you're driving 10 pairs of speakers and you're really cranking it up, this thing has to put out a lot of power. Now, I did do some searching around and could not find any specific specifications as to how much power this creates, what the frequency response of the amplifier is, what the distortion of the amplifier is. So I don't really know that, and it's hard to guess about things like that. Might be able to sort of work it out roughly, but it's always nice to have factory specifications if you can actually find them. And then there is, I believe, some sort of interface that happens between this and the master station, originally the MC960, that lets the master station know that this is connected to it. The other thing that's very interesting is that this continued on beyond the original MC series, 302, 602, 702s, 902s, and 960s, and was still in production. That's based on the date code of 05, still in production when the all-new DMC series came out. So let's veer off topic briefly, even though it's related. So we'll move this beast out of the way. This is quite heavy, probably weighs 8 or 9 pounds. Put that over there, and we're going to veer off and look at this real quick. This is a music and sound model DMC1. And this would have been the new installation model that you would install if you were doing a DMC. These came out roughly 2003. One of the things that's interesting on here is you'll see here on the terminal board, it's upside down, all the electrons are going to fall out. Here on the terminal board, it uses the same Phoenix connectors as on our 960PA. See, they plug in just like that. Although the wiring would be different because this is where the wiring from the remote speakers is connected. But one of the things that doesn't come up very often is over on this side. So this is your radio tuner. This is your speaker. And down here is another Phoenix connector. What's that all about? Well, that's where you would run your interconnect cable to plug in your MC960PA power amp like that. So this sends and this is a radio intercom master station, but now you've connected it to an external amplifier over here, this beast, and it's sending the audio. Exactly what and how, not exactly sure, but it sends the audio from this through to the power amplifier and then out to pairs of stereo speakers throughout your house. And that's why, if you look down here, which is really hard to see, down here, there are 4 RCA sockets. These are for auxiliary external audio inputs. They're labeled as CD and auxiliary, and the reason that there's 4 is because for CD there's left and right, and for auxiliary there's left and right. And when you have left and right inputs, that automatically implies, oh, it's for a stereo device. One of the things that gets overlooked is back in the day when this was new, Music and Sound did make an auxiliary in-wall CD changer, 6 discs and a cartridge. Pretty slick, very expensive, and they break a lot. But it has stereo output, so it's a stereo CD player, and it would feed it into this, so that if you did use this connector and sent it to your MC960 Power Amplifier, you could play stereo throughout your ceiling speakers throughout your house, up to 60 speakers or 30 pairs. How about that? So this was planned for from the beginning of the design of this, where basically what they did, if you wanted to sort of boil it down and make it simple to look at, is they took an MC602, which was an AM/FM mono intercom system, sort of the precursor to the DMC, although different wiring, but we won't get into that, and incorporated the auxiliary output and the audio inputs in stereo of an MC960 to create what could be a receiver to feed a separate power amplifier to drive up to 60 individual speakers or 30 pairs throughout your house. So they were trying to sort of cover all the bases with just making fewer pieces of equipment, because what you have to remember is, or what you have to know is, when the DMC model came out, you have the DMC1, which was designed primarily for new construction, and then there was also the DMC3-4, which could be installed as a 3-wire or 4-wire system, and that was to replace older Music and Sound and NuTone intercom systems. While I don't have a DMC3-4 handy, this is the main board out of a DMC3-4. Very similar to the main board in a DMC1, but different. If you look at this and we flip it over, here's our 4 auxiliary input jacks, left and right CD, left and right auxiliary, and look what we have sitting right next to it on the board. We have our green Phoenix connector. So you can also run an interconnect cable between this and your MC960PA and drive stereo speakers off a DMC3-4. That would probably only be if you already had extra ceiling speakers that weren't part of this system, or you were going to add them for some reason. Also, if you look at it from a design point of view, incorporating this into this board during manufacturing, when you design the board and send it out to be manufactured, it's not a lot of extra cost. Couple jacks, a little bit of routing in the board, a Phoenix connector, so maybe it's $1. Even if you only sell a few, it still works out for some people, and you have a chance of selling more of these. One of the other things that's interesting and there will be a play around with this in another video because I don't have time to set it all up today, is, as I've shown in other videos, the system-wide adjustments in the DMC series are all done in menus that are built into the system. People hate menus, but that's the way they did it. One of the things that comes up on some installations sometimes is, all on its own, without having done anything to it or for any reason that you can really figure out, an additional menu item will get turned on in the list of available menus. So the available menus are master speaker volume, loudness on and off, treble setting, bass setting, intercom level, and music level throughout the house. But sometimes you see DMC models that also have a balance control. And balance control is what you have when you have a stereo system, because stereo systems are two channels, left and right. So you have to have a balance. You have to be able to balance the sound out between the left and right side to make it sound correct in your room. In a mono system like this, mono is only a single channel. There's no reason to have balance because you only have one speaker in each location. But when you have stereo speakers, like say, 30 pairs of them throughout your house, you need to have balance control because you want it to sound proper. It's already built into the firmware inside the set, and for some unknown reason that we never could get an answer to from Music and Sound, sometimes that menu item turns on its own, and don't know why. It doesn't affect anything because you're not driving stereo speakers, but it's annoying, and sometimes they have to replace systems because people complain too much. Now, I'm going to make a wild assumption, which we'll find out sometime in another video, that when you make the interconnection between this Phoenix connector here and the connector on your giant MC960PA, somehow these two units talk to each other, or they know that they each exist. And when you do that, the balance menu automatically pops up in the DMC to allow you to adjust the balance of your two channels from your power amplifier. That's something for another video. Like I said, I don't have time to do that today. This seems to be used. Whether it works or not is unknown, but we will have a play around with it in an upcoming video where I'll get a properly working DMC1. We'll get some extra speakers and wire it up to this. Oh, and one of the things I'm going to point out, I know we're covering a lot of ground here, but these are all things that come to mind. This is the horrid little speaker that's in a DMC master station. This is only 2.5 by 3.25 oval. These are also the speakers that are used in the remote stations for the DMC series. And these were used primarily because they're small and people wanted smaller equipment on their wall, didn't take up so much space, didn't stand out so much. So it's a serious compromise, and they're horrid because that's how they sound. First of all, oval speakers don't have as good a frequency response as round speakers do. And also, the basic fundamental rule is little speaker, little sound, big speaker, big sound. Now, back in the day, we installed many, not DMCs so much, but the NuTone version, the NM series, as updates in existing houses and so forth. We never did any new construction with them because why would you? You'd put them in and you hook them all up. And I remember the very first one we installed, it was for a fella and his wife who were the owner of a big electrical wholesale chain. He really, really wanted it, and he supplied all the equipment. And we went and we put it all in, me and my guy Leonard, and we hooked it all up and we turned it on, and we both looked at each other and thought, is that all it does? Because you have to remember, in the early 2000s, this was pretty jazzy. It looked pretty jazzy and it looked better than it sounded. And we were sure that we had done something wrong, and we double checked everything and we figured out the adjustments and we played around with it and everything. And it's like, no, it's just how it sounds. Pretty disappointing. Then you fast forward probably 3 or 4 years later, and we went to do a replacement system. It was an older Music and Sound system, probably an N350 or maybe an N440. I don't remember exactly. I think it was an N440. And in the lady's house, pretty good sized house, she had 3 rooms where they had really pushed the limit, and in the family room, living room, and dining room, they had pairs of 8-inch ceiling speakers. In fact, the 8-inch ceiling speakers look like this. These are Music and Sound NR8Ps. This one's not because the speaker's gone, but this is a grill for one. She had, and it wasn't a stereo system, it was a mono system, but the original installer doubled up the speakers like it was stereo to get more sound because they were really big rooms. These kind of speakers use big, sorry, this kind of covered up here, big 8-inch size speakers. And they were Music and Sound speakers. They were 45 ohm speakers, just like this beast is designed to drive. Surprisingly enough, when it was all done, her little Music and Sound, actually it was a NuTone because it was the NuTone version, it would have been an NM200. It actually sounded pretty good. We were able to reuse the original volume controls that were in the rooms because they were the same. It actually had pretty decent sound. I have a video where I talk about little speakers and big speakers, and I'll put one of those pop-ups up here that you can go watch it if you're interested. It's not that these sets are so horrible in the way they sound, it's that what the sound comes out of is awful. If you took these, if you took this big power amplifier and you start hooking it up to pairs of 8-inch stereo speakers throughout the house, you're probably going to actually end up with something that sounds halfway good. Is it going to compare and compete with Bose or JBL or something like that? No, probably not. But on the other hand, it wouldn't have cost as much. You know, a Bose system throughout the house. Bose at one time in the early 80s they had a cooperation deal with NuTone, and they actually made systems, they were Bose systems that you could buy through NuTone dealers that had big power amplifiers made by Bose that you put, they were called Acoustimass speakers. They were very elaborate for the days. It was the 80s. You could have Bose quality sound throughout your house. It was quite a thing. They were hugely expensive, and I never really saw anybody ever actually put them in, but that's for another video. Today we have unboxed a Music and Sound model MC960PA power amplifier that was originally designed to work with an MC960 or later with a DMC1, a DMC3-4. Could also work with a NuTone NM100 or an NM200, and if you were really smart about it, you'd have a bunch of 8-inch speakers. Can you imagine in your house if you had 30 pairs of these? It would be awesome. Hope you found this interesting, and perhaps for someone it will be helpful. If it is, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube because that helps us just a little bit. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell. When you click on the bell, click on it to receive all notifications. And every time we post a new video, you get a notification and you can watch. That's all for today. See you on the next video.